Hello, Abigail here with the Tarotscopes for Gemini season, Scorpio sun, moon, and rising. My Scorpio humans, this Gemini season is such a transitional season. So many planets shifting into different signs, several kind of big planetary transitions happening, and it feels like this year is finally getting underway, which I'm really happy about. I know you guys have been through a lot with that Mars retrograde, and we are finally in the season of no more retrograde shadow. And kind of looking at the cards and looking at these transits, it really does feel as though, and I'll touch on this more later, but it does feel as though you have been pushed off on a journey. That this is really, the past few months has really started something for you. And so we're heading off into kind of a journeying, moment for you. And it's exciting, a little scary, but let's see what the season has to offer. So just to kind of get the major things that are happening, on May 24th, we have Saturn moving into Aries. Now, if you are in a different time zone than EST, it might be the 25th, but it's happening right on the edge of the day. And this is really big. Now, yeah, it's going to retrograde back for a little bit in the fall, but this is the beginning of that Saturn transition into a new sign. If you have a Saturn in Pisces, this is the beginning of the end of your Saturn return. So congrats. Then the day after, we have Mercury going into Gemini, into domicile. Won't be there for very long, but it's a really nice moment to finally have Mercury in a sign that it's really happy in, really thrilled to be where it is and to get to experience being where it is and enjoying where it is. And then we have this really, special moment where we have a new moon right after it. So there's like 3 days, Saturn moving, Mercury moving, and then this new moon. And while all of these, the lunar moments in Gemini season are a bit tense, each one has a ruler that's really happy. So this, kind of trine to Pluto Gemini new moon gets a nice little boost from that domicile Mercury that rules it. Just like the Sagittarius full moon, in June ends up having a nice little oomph to it because by then Jupiter will have entered into Cancer. And so we have an exalted Jupiter kind of gently toning down a honestly really intense nodal square to this moment, which can feel like an eclipse sometimes. So just kind of know that there is a lot of help and support in this season, which I'm personally thrilled about, especially after how intense everything's been. Then on the 6th of June, we have Venus going into Taurus, which is where it's domicile, so another planet that's super happy. And, 2 days later, on the 8th, we have Mercury going into Cancer. And a lot of the big events in Gemini season are happening in chunks, just a few days apart. So the first one is, bing, bang, boom, 3 days in a row. The next section, which is in June, is like Venus and Mercury transitions happening just 2 days apart. And then right after that, we get Jupiter going into Cancer. And it's really intense and a big shift. And I think it's intense in a good way. This is one of those moments in astrology that a lot of astrologers are like super thrilled about, which doesn't happen often. So we're all pretty hyped and thrilled about this moment. And it just feels nice to have Jupiter out of detriment. No hate, no shade to, Jupiters that exist in Gemini, but it is in detriment, and there is a kind of like a little trickster edge to a lot of Jupiterian activity in Gemini. Whereas in Cancer, there's not an edge. It's very soft, very beautiful, very expansive. And then moving on, we have that full moon in Sagittarius on the 11th of June. And then last but not least, Mars, your ruler, goes into Virgo. Mars is like neither here nor there in Virgo per se. It's just it can be very critical. Mars will get progress done, but it can be a little harsh about it. Like, oh, so you want that? Here are all the reasons it's going to be difficult, and we're going to do it. And I might not be nice about it. So, just know that it's kind of nitpicky, but I do think that kind of nitpicky Virgo energy is going to help you fine tune this journey that you've been kind of sent on. Very excited about that. But let's get into your archetype card and what that means for you. We have Venom, the Venom to be exact. And they really think this is time to kind of tap into that really spicy Martian energy, to really tap into, I love the imagery of this card. It's, this kind of poisonous green with this really garish, beautiful yellow with this mouth kind of opening itself over like a planet that looks kind of like Earth. So it's this really kind of dark and powerful energy and strength. I think if you've been a little bit soft on people, if you have let people cross your boundaries, or someone is actively stomping on you, chomp them in the leg, you know, get them. They don't get to tell you what to do. They don't get to push you around or tell you that you're wrong or that you don't know what you need. It's time to really stand up for yourself and set some firm boundaries and use venom and use the tools at your disposal to protect yourself. The only people I've ever known who are like, you shouldn't fight back. You should always respond with kindness, are people who are generally mean. And I'm not talking about people who have been conditioned into that and that's what they think. I'm talking about the people who are like, this is the only way. You're a complete monster if you clap back at people. And then they're always vicious. That's the person I'm talking about. This is a person who, anytime, they've done something wrong, they demand forgiveness. And anytime, and I actually saw this in a comment section about today on TikTok about parents who are no contact. Someone was like opening a debate, and the first comment that popped up was, of course, divisive and was like, if you don't forgive your parents, you're a blah 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 blah. You have to forgive them. And the poster was like pushing back, and I remembered a quote by an author I like, which is, people who demand forgiveness rarely deserve it, and people who deserve forgiveness rarely demand it. It's time to kind of pull the fangs out, to kind of release some poison, to say, no, we're not going to participate in this anymore. You don't get to have a say anymore in this. If you are going to act out of pocket, I can act even crazier and even more unhinged and out of pocket than that. So welcome to insanity. So this is not a season for you to play it safe. You are stepping onto new territory. And the key thing about stepping into new territory is that you get to reset the rules of the playing space. So don't step into that territory accepting those old past things. Step into that territory, burning bridges, scorching the earth, saying like, now that we're here, I'm not going to accept this type of behavior anymore. And, you're going to get what you give. And that's a completely reasonable response. And I do love the cards. And this is also the card that's the reason why I really felt that you all are on some kind of a journey that's happening, that you've kind of been pushed off from all of the stuff that's been happening. We have a Six of Swords, which is the card of journeying. And I love how this deck, the swords have kitties on them. Like all of the swords have kitties on them. Kind of like the trigger for the suit. You're being called into this kind of journey. And I do think it's a shadow journey, because if you look, the swords, the 6 swords are like 3 physical material swords and then 3 shadow swords. So you are playing between the swords. You are working on both visible and invisible things. This is not just a journey of the physical body. This is a journey of the spiritual body. So there's a lot of really rich spiritual lessons. And I absolutely think this Venom card and this stepping into your power after a really toasty retrograde is really going to be beneficial and wonderful, especially since our next card is 9 of Pentacles. I will say this 9 of Pentacles with this little hungy chameleon can sometimes feel like grasping at stuff and trying to ingest things before they're ready, or kind of in a way that's inappropriate, aka a chameleon eating a coin. But I think in this one, it's just you needing to reach out to grab your goodness. I think a lot of times, I absolutely believe that the things that are meant for us will come to us, but you also have to be participating in order for, you like, for someone to throw a ball to you, you have to be on the field. I was talking with a client actually recently, and they were like, the person I want, aren't they just going to materialize for me? Like, if I am manifesting the person I desire, I'm like, well, firstly, that hasn't really worked so far. Like, most of your past partners have materialized. It didn't turn out very well, which is fine. No shade to that. But like, we might need to find a different method for getting people, like an intentional thing. And also, you have to go to the places where you think you're going to find that person, whether that be dating apps or especially with this person, in communities where that person might exist. Going to spaces where the person with these qualities might go to. And maybe you do meet that person spontaneously. But by going to the spaces where you believe them most likely to be, you're opening energetic channels that bring you more of that energy. So in this season, you really do have to go out to receive what you get. It's not about putting in more labor. It's not about, putting yourself in difficult positions. It's about going to the places where you're most likely to receive the things that you desire rather than kind of staying at home and waiting for them, or going to places where it doesn't exist, and expecting it to show up. If we are staying at home and what we want is not at home, or if we want flowers, but we go to and I was about to say hardware store, but a lot of hardware stores have flowers, they're just in pots. If you want flowers, but you go to a sportswear shop, you're not going to find flowers, or vice versa. So I encourage you to go to the places where abundance exists. You don't have to go and be grabbing abundance and forcing things, but just going and being present in those spaces where you are most likely to get the things that you want. So that you can deal with that. And I love that this is the next card, because we have a 3 of Wands, which for me is very much opening that portal and channel to get the things that you desire. This is the moment where all of your work and effort culminates into a space where you are open and ready for the beauty the universe has for you. And no, it doesn't usually all come in at once. I will say that, at least from my experience. Whenever I manifest, the universe is like, what lesson or multiple lessons can I slip into this so it doesn't really feel like you got it for nothing? But it's not every once in a while there is someone who genuinely can just manifest and boom, thing is there. But for a lot of us, it is about creating the space and the portal and learning the things in order to get the things and have the space where those things can exist. And so that's what we're doing in this season. We're opening and creating a space where the things that we want are going to come to us, and also creating energy. Like energy creates like energy. So if you are vibrating at a certain rate and something nearby has the same frequency, you will both vibrate together. That's actually actual science, folks. And I want to be clear, I'm not talking about low or high vibrational stuff. I don't believe in that. I find that to be not really a great perspective. It really feels like it's victim blamey and qualifies people's experiences in a way that just doesn't feel genuine to me. Anyways, I'll get off my high horse about that. But, creating an energetic space that is like the things that you want. And I want to be very clear, you can be sad and depressed and upset about the way things are and still manifest the stuff you want. It is wild to expect people to be happy and positive all the time. And a lot of sometimes our clearest manifestation comes out of the distress and knowing that a situation is not right for us. So, don't also try to create a false a false dynamic. You need something that suits you, and something that suits you will also be aware of your own personal feelings. And then I absolutely love this card, especially in this deck. We have the star. For me, the star always represents spirit or ancestors, some kind of supportive energy coming in that is a being that doesn't really technically have flesh and blood running through it and covering it. But it's a spiritual entity of support. If you work with a deity, maybe it's a deity or an angel or a personal spirit. But there is support here in this season. There is spiritual support. There is someone here who's on a journey with you that desires something for you and who is willing to offer you guidance and advice and the things that you have been asking for. So if you don't have an altar or a spiritual space, or your practice is kind of, breathing, raggedly breathing after, the beginning of the year, maybe this is the season to kind of spice it up. And I encourage you not to go too big, too fast, because that can also be exhausting. But just take baby steps into opening yourself up for the support that, the energy around you, your spirits, your guides really want to offer you. And last but most certainly not least, we have a 4 of Swords, which is why I caution against overdoing it and instantly jumping into things and kind of doing stuff. You do need to rest this season. This is still a season of recoup. I also find when the energy is this heightened, this intense, this wild, it is really important to rest. And sometimes the most productive thing is to rest. So obviously, we do need to be in the spaces where the things are creating the energy that we want to receive, but you can do that work, take a nap. You can do that work one day and rest the next day. And especially if you've kind of had to take a break, or your spiritual muscle isn't up, think about it like, you know, workout. You have to have recovery days. So make sure in this season you're taking recovery days from life, you're taking recovery days from spiritual practice. It doesn't all have to be pedal to the metal. And honestly, with the way the universe is shifting, it doesn't need to be, because the universe is already going pretty hard. um, so yeah. Anyways, that is my reading for you all. I'm really excited. It's like we've got like fangs and abundance and support. And it feels as though that self protection that you're going to be projecting into the world is also going to come back to you. And you, not as in like come back to you and you're going to get hurt, but the protection that you put out is really going to benefit you and strengthen your ability to practice. I had a session last night, and after I was done, it was a reading, it was a channeling for someone who's passed and someone who's living. And I was really glad that I had really worked on personal boundaries in the physical world and really worked on personal boundaries in the spiritual world, because the soul present was not following, basic respect and struggled with boundaries. And so when you practice physical boundaries in the real world, it resounds spiritually. And when you set them spiritually, it resounds externally. So you're doing double the work whenever you do any kind of self-protection, self-healing, self-sustaining. You're helping your community, you're helping yourself. So, rest when you can, because you're doing a lot. Anyways, my loves, please like and subscribe if you enjoy my stuff. Also, please comment if there's anything that resonated, or you have any questions, or just have something to say about your own experience. That's it. Blessed Gemini season, and I will see you in a different space and time.